strateji, organizasyon ve operasyon modeli tasarımı, dönüşüm ve uygulama alanlarında derin tecrübelerinden faydalanacağımız bir tepe yönetici ağırlayacağız. Kurum ve organizasyonlar için sahip oldukları en önemli sermayeyi, insan kaynağının etkin yönetimini nasıl sağlarız diye sormak istiyoruz. Mercer Organizasyon Gelişimi ve Verimlilik Birimi Direktörü Saidja Drentje'yi alkışlarınızla sahneye davet ediyorum.
Thank you everybody for being here. Much appreciated is your interest in the following topic. It has been already a long and very interesting morning, starting with the mayor. Very interesting for me, having followed what was happening in the news and then seeing him on the stage. Very exciting. I really enjoyed the Google presentation. In the meantime, I've solved how many light bulbs there are in Bulgaria, and you can ask me afterwards how many there are. I'm now working on how many ping pong balls fit in a Boeing 747. These are all questions that we actually get asked in consulting when we go through the interviews. Today, I would like to talk about delivering business strategy and transformation enablement through effective human capital management. But before I dive into this topic, I would like to thank the association for giving us the opportunity to speak here today. And I would like to thank my team for preparing the presentation. I have flown in from the Middle East myself. I'm a principal working for Mercer, helping companies with transformations. And so I actually travel all over the world to address these challenges for HR, as well as for the business executives that work closely with HR and human capital. I think, where's the remote? There we go. My history is I have worked for many years for McKinsey & Company. This after being part of a large-scale transformation while working in the industry, in the financial sector. I started off as an investment banker, but during my first 2 years at the bank, we had been part of takeovers and mergers. And before I knew it, I was working for one of the largest and fastest growing financial institutions in Europe at the time. I was fortunate to work together with McKinsey on that journey while working for Fortis Bank. And after that, I studied at Columbia University and was excited to become part of McKinsey permanently and move to the Middle East, where I have worked across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe for the last 15 years in consulting. The reason I joined Mercer, which is the #1 human capital, human resource consultancy in the world, was not their sheer size. It was not their advanced products and their ability to deliver to clients, but I was particularly interested in the implementation side. Having worked in organizational design for McKinsey for about 10 years, I had seen large-scale transformations time and again, and where I felt there should be more focus was on implementation, bringing strategic perspectives and human capital advisory services together to really bring the executives and HR in the same room, on the same page, and creating real impact on the ground. Implementation is what excites me. And that is exactly what we're focused on. We're a fairly new team. We have been active for 5 years within Mercer. Our practice has been established 5 years ago. And we are now growing very rapidly internationally, and our focus, like I said, is on business strategy, bringing it enablement to the clients, and delivering deep insights. Some of the topics that you guys might be interested in is what we focus on: strategic workforce planning, organizational transformation, and macro policy. We advise governments, private sector, and actually every in the large-scale institution. So this presentation is in 3 sections. First, I want to establish the relevance of human capital and the importance in today's day and age. Then I would like to share with you, and I think you'll be facing a lot of these challenges yourself in the industry. I want to inform you of the key challenges. And then I would like to share with you our perspective on how to approach human capital management in the most effective way, bringing together again the leadership and human resources. A brief history. I'm myself an economist by training. I studied economics in the US, and I'm very familiar with the history of human capital and the perspectives that people have brought. Initially, economists in England were the first to really think about what is the value of human resources. Sir William Petty is actually a contemporary of Hobbes and Sir Francis Bacon, and they were the first thinkers in this space. They were particularly interested in portraying how much the value is of lost lives in wars, so that was in those days. Then, at the end of the 19th century, people started thinking more about human capital as a factor of production, just like machinery, just like land would be. Interesting enough, I think Irving Fisher, for those that are economists, is one of the prominent Keynesian predecessors who focused a lot on inflation, for example, which his theories are still used today. Theodore Schultz was a Nobel Prize winner economist, and he was the first to really see human capital the way we see it today, as an asset that can be developed and should be focused on to deliver results. Fast forwarding half a century, you can see that the environment has changed drastically. We're in a time of rapid change, accelerating change. The marketplace is changing, businesses are growing faster, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions taking place. We have gone to digital consumptions, for example. There is the changing technology that we have heard about just now as well. We're talking about artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, robotics. Things will not be the same, and we need to anticipate that. Then there is the changing workforce. This is, of course, a hot topic. It's about diversity in the workplace, which we heard about earlier. It's about an on-demand workforce, changing demographics, an aging population. So we are in a time of tremendous change. If we compare that historically, we know that initially financial capital was very important around the time of the Depression in the US. There was a lot of focus on getting the financial capital. Once that was in place, people started to focus on optimizing operations, improving manufacturing. Then we went more to a services age where brand capital became extremely important. And now we're more in the time of intellectual capital and you know, moving towards the focus on human capital. Human capital, as it turns out, and a lot of research has been done on that, also by the Harvard Business Review, is critical in transformations. And pretty much every organization is in some form of transformation. I've looked into this myself, and I would say about 80% of the companies right now, for example, in the US, are undergoing some form of transformation. So having studied those transformations, what we can see is that human capital makes all the difference. If you have a successful human capital management, a mature human capital management, you'll see that the impact of transformations is 29 times more positive than when you don't focus on human capital management. You can see that you can get a lot more out of your talent. Their productivity goes up by 30% by focusing on them. And it, of course, last but not least, is the importance on the bottom line. And that is, of course, what the executives would like to see. You can see that you have 15% more revenue, operating income, and return on equity by focusing more on human capital management. This is not just one industry. This is across all industries. When we looked at the transformations taking place today around the world and interviewed and you know, reviewed the interviews with all the CEOs, it became very clear that about 60% of all the CEOs, all the leaders, all the C-suites are confirming that human capital is critical in these transformations, well over technology, well over any other factor. It's all about human capital management. It is therefore not surprising, of course, that CEOs focus after innovation, most on human capital. But like I said, innovation cannot happen without the human capital. But heavy investment goes into innovation, and human capital is seen as the second most important area to focus on. Breaking down that concern from CEOs, we can see that 6 out of the top 10 top-of-mind priorities are related to human capital management. Attraction and retention of top talent is the most important consideration for CEOs today, and of course for human resource management. Developing the next generation leaders. Personally, I work every day on projects, on multiple projects focused on this particular topic. It is a very hot topic. We're thinking about assessments, about selections, about improving leaders, succession planning. This is something that is a lot of fun and of interest to me as well. In general, I think we've all heard very famous people talk about the importance of happy employees, employees that feel at home, that are passionate about what they're doing. Whether you talk to Toyota, whether you talk to Apple, or you talk to Netflix, some of the newer companies, everybody is focused on this one element. But nevertheless, it's still the biggest challenge. Human capital management is not easy. As we can see here, executives feel that there's not enough focus on people management risks. We can see that HR leaders are saying, well, the business managers are not paying enough attention to this. At the end of the day, what I was telling earlier is that a lot of investment for transformation goes into technology, into innovation, but it cannot succeed without investment in people and processes. If we sum it up, and from my personal experience, there are 5 key topics that CEOs and HR managers are very focused on these days. Future readiness. Everybody is wondering, where is the industry going? What are the next changes? So they scenario plan. Only 50% of the companies are doing this, though, but it's a critical aspect. AI and automation is something which everybody is talking about, and everybody wants to take advantage of it. But to do so effectively, you need to optimize the workforce and redesign jobs. Future skills is something that is intangible, but at Mercer we focus a lot on this. In fact, we're working together with the World Economic Forum every year for the Davos offsite of the global leaders and prepare a research on what's happening, where are the future skills required, what's happening with AI. So we need to make sure that we leverage the talent internally and reschool them and to address future needs. Then we have, of course, everybody is expecting a better work environment nowadays. The jobs are changing, people want to work from home. There's a lot of focus on diversity, so we have to acknowledge that and address those issues. And finally, there's the talent agility. We need to make sure that we promote and develop talent as per the business requirement, and we need to facilitate that process more easily. To give you a little preview of some of the research that we have done this year on what type of consulting requirements are there across IMETA. You'll find that the top industries differ by country or by region. However, the top 3 or the top 5 top-of-mind consulting considerations are all around diagnostics, strategic workforce planning, and organizational design. These are the hot topics, and as it turns out, in Turkey it's no different. In Turkey, we're focusing on strategic workforce planning, digital HR and HR analytics, which was discussed a bit earlier by Microsoft, organizational redesign. So these are indeed the topics that people are looking for help based on the earlier expressed concerns and risks. Now, the way we look at this at Mercer OD&E, and I'm part of the OD&E practice, Organizational Development and Effectiveness, we try to really break down the problem and address what the business leaders want to see, understand, and focus on. I want to walk you through these 5 key top considerations that CEOs have today. They're asking all the same questions. Are we able to measure the level of effectiveness of the organization, human capital management capabilities? How do the capabilities compare across the entire conglomerate, multinational, or institution? Are we able to track and measure our performance and the alignment with business objectives? Are we proactively identifying human capital-related risks? Does somebody keep an eye on all these risks? Are we able to align our investments to get the most out of our human capital? So these are the questions that I get every day from executives. And hence, I normally take a very systematic approach to addressing these concerns and advise companies exactly on these particular topics. One is measuring human capital management quantitatively, taking a comprehensive analytical approach and methodology so that we can see where we are today and check it again a year from now. Then we develop a very actionable roadmap for leaders to really understand, okay, these are where your challenges are, and this is what you need to do in the next 3 years to address them. This is where your investment needs to go. This is where your focus should be. And then, last but not least, honestly, it's most important to get everybody aligned on this, because human capital management is not operating in a silo. We need to get everybody to understand what the priorities are that we have identified and to focus on those. Take an integrated perspective and communicate it at a broader scale. So, what I'm proposing is that human capital management should be at the core of the corporate trinity. Business strategy, HR function, and organizational development. Human capital management is right at the core of it. And to hammer it home one more time for everybody, because this is very important, companies need to really have an end-to-end view, and they have to have the capabilities to assess where they stand today. The executive leadership really needs to understand how the HCM aligns with the business strategy, and they need to know and be aware of the strategic roadmap that we're taking, so everybody can move in alignment. When I look at a company, I look at these core dimensions as well as enabling dimensions. This gives us a very good understanding how mature is the company in managing its human capital. The core dimensions, and I won't go into the details because all of you will recognize them. It's HR and workforce strategy, organizational design and governance, talent acquisition, HC development, retention and engagement. These are all the key topics that you will be focusing on in any case. And the enabling dimensions are leadership, culture, digital, workforce analytics, HR operation model. Good. So now this, like I said earlier, this is what we do for some of the largest companies in the world, as well as local players. I'll give you 3 examples of this year's projects that we have been part of. Some were managed from the Turkey office, some were managed from the Middle East office. It's just a small subset to give you a flavor and tying it back in with what are the key topics that people are focused on today. We've worked with an European defense player and assessed their organization design. And we talked about strategic execution, a roadmap. This we did for them for the next 3 years, and we prioritized the action plan. And this was a very successful project that we did here in Europe. One of our very interesting success stories, and it's an ongoing relationship, is with one of the largest petrochemical companies with 18,000 employees, and a revenue that exceeds some of the countries in Africa's national GDP. This is one of the biggest players in the world. We help them with workforce planning. This is a very hot topic, like I said earlier, and it's a very detailed project where we looked at the current workforce, looked at benchmarking, segmentation, talent flow analysis, and we did an organizational right-sizing, and we predicted for them which skills are required in which part of their company going forward. I think the investment they made in this project was paid back 150-fold in the first year alone, and this was a 3-year roadmap that we've developed. This is what big companies are very interested in today. They want to understand where is the industry going and where should we focus when it comes to skill and manpower. And the last example I would like to give to you is the redesign of an organizational structure and strategic workforce planning that we did for one of the largest telecom and ICT operators in the Middle Eastern region. Wrapping all of this up, I would like to emphasize that there are clear trends that are happening. We have found very strategic solutions to help organizations, and I hope that this presentation gives you some sense of what we would focus on, and we would be happy to help any of your organizations in this journey. I'm happy to answer some questions if anybody has questions, and I will ask my colleague Kuntay, who manages the Turkey office for Mercer OD&E, to join me on the stage in case there are any questions. I think lunch is waiting, so I think people are ready to eat something. Thank you.